Welcome, everybody, to the April 15th meeting of the Charter Revision Commission. We'll call the meeting to order at 6:32. We'll do a roll call. Those present in the chambers, we have Joe Bennett, Tyler Fairbairn, Doug Hempstead, John Levin, Rick McQuaid. Online, Carl Dickens, Tanya Rhodes Small, Jim Clark, and Ed Camacho. We get the full group tonight. Do we have a motion to accept the minutes of our April 1st meeting? Doug? Okay, any corrections to those minutes?
I have one, because I've got it wrong.
Okay.
Comment by Diane Orange.
Okay.
Page 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay.
He said $1.1 million for the puny parcel at Lockwood Matthews Mansion. I think that it's at Matthews Park.
Yeah.
The mansion doesn't own anything. Mansion's on city property, but the parcel we're talking about, I think, was the Butler Street property.
Yes.
Correct?
Okay.
Oh, I just went
Okay.
little sense.
So that should be Matthews Park. Okay.
Parcel that. Should be Butler Street, really.
Okay.
That.
What should we? What do you want to call
I'm,
it?
I'm making a motion to change that parcel at Butler Street.
Parcel at Butler Street. I had a couple on page 7 of the page 7 of the minutes. Paragraph 2. It should be Attorney Camacho reminded everyone, not everything. Also on page 7, paragraph 5. Mr. Levin said that he would like to respond to Attorney Camacho's suggestion, not suggested. Page 9, paragraph 4. Yes, it should be. Paragraph 4, third line, he added that he would be adding, not added. And then maybe one that's a little more important on page 13. The paragraph that's Attorney Mendick agreed and noted, it should be 2/3. It looks like there was a 4 in there. 2/34. Those were the 4 I had.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Jim.
a question. This is a comment about the change to Dan Loricella's comment about the parcel at Lockwood Matthews Mansion. I'm kind of uncomfortable striking that since that was what she said. How about if we just added in parentheses Butler's, adding a clarification, like in parentheses Butler. Did you say it was Butler Street? Because I'd hate to put words in her mouth on the record that she did not say.
That's
I'm
fair.
okay with that.
Doug, you good with
Yeah,
that?
I'm
Okay.
good with that. Yeah. Just for clarity's sake.
Okay.
Yeah, so that adds clarity without changing what she did say.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you, Jim.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Any other changes to the minutes?
I have some changes.
Okay.
All on page 14. There was some discussion. So paragraph 2 says, as a consequence, the police commission is dysfunctional and
And John, 1 second. This is page 14 of the packet or of the minutes?
Good question. I believe.
Oh, wait a minute.
You know what?
So page 14 of the packet is page 12 of the minutes. Is that the page you're talking about?
Right. Thank you.
14 of the
Thank you.
packet. Yep. Okay. I am using what Esther sent out.
Mhm.
So this should be page 14 of what she sent out, if I'm getting that right.
Page 14 of the packet.
Okay, yes, I
Okay.
believe so.
Page 12.
14 of 80, yeah. Okay.
Okay. So Paragraph 2 reads, as a consequence, the police commission is dysfunctional, and by diluting the appointment authority, the city will have a better result than what is currently in place, and that should be replaced with the city might get a better result than what is currently in place.
Placing will have with might get,
Correct.
okay?
Good.
Paragraph 3, Mr. Dickens, it reads, Mr. Dickens asked for an example of where the police chief has been negligent or dysfunctional. I believe that should read where the police commission has been negligent or dysfunctional.
Okay.
And then last, continuing in that same paragraph, there's a sentence that grammatically makes no sense. It reads, Mr. Levin said that the charter indicates what they have not done, such the commission being in control, management, and supervision of the police force in the city and all of its property.
Such as,
So this should be,
That makes perfect sense to me.
this should be corrected to Mr. Levin replied that under the city charter, the police commission is responsible for control, management, and supervision of the police force in the city and all of its property. The dysfunction and negligence are due to what the commission hasn't done.
Is that true?
that's what you said, or that's your?
No, but I
cleaning
mean,
up
is that what, is
That
that a true
is-
function of the, and responsibilities of the police commission?
Have you read the charter, Carl? It's in the charter.
Yeah, I was part of it, if you'll recall.
Okay.
I don't remember that that was a directive of what the power is of the commission when they're appointed as commissioners for the police commission, city of Norwalk.
Mr. Dickens.
In charge of and running the police department, isn't that the chief's job?
I can only, you know what? I think that would be the decision of these police commission itself, but the language of the charter is pretty clear.
I
think
what we're talking about here is what presumably we said, not what
Yeah.
is true.
Yeah, we're
That's
not
correct.
reopening that discussion. It's if there's something factually wrong there, if it's missing a word, or it's the wrong one, let's fix that, but.
Yeah, correct.
It's if we're gonna replace words, John, it's gotta be exactly what you said, not.
Okay, then I believe that is exactly what I said, more or less.
I have Mr. Dickens, did you say that, did you ask for an example where the police chief has been negligent? Did you ask that?
I asked for an example of the allegations that were made that the commission, I think, had been negligent
Okay.
on doing things.
So Mr. Levin's correction to commission is in your view, correct? To
So I
take,
think we agree that chief should be changed to commission in
yes,
the first sentence of the third paragraph.
Correct.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah,
okay. John,
Yep.
I have one.
yep,
Page 7 of the minutes, page 9 of what was submitted
yep,
by Esther. Second paragraph. Camacho reminded everyone, thank you for that, that the upcoming election would likely be a primary, not a primary, would likely be a primary, and oftentimes they only get about 600 people coming out to vote.
Okay.
So
right.
right. Any other changes to the minutes? Okay, if not, all in favor of approving with the revisions that we've just discussed? All right. Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Leads us to our public participation portion. I think we have a couple of people here, so if you guys wouldn't mind coming up in the order in which you signed up, and then we'll check for online as well. There were a couple up there, Joe. I don't know if it's still on. Sorry.
Fine, that's okay. I think it's just me. Mine is here for moral support. My name is Laurel Peterson. and I live at 6 Ledgewood Court. Thank you for hearing me out. I'm a member of the Norwalk Public Library Board of Directors and former poet laureate of the city. And I'm here in support of the recommended changes to the city charter regarding library governance. Historically, the library director was appointed through a collaborative process between the mayor and our board. This process worked well, especially since it lined up with the state statute on library governance, followed the state of Connecticut's library board's best practices, and reflects how most library directors are hired throughout our state. This changed suddenly during the last charter revision. My reason for speaking tonight in favor of our change lies with the increasingly politicized nature of public discourse, of access to information, and around libraries in general. The current federal administration's cuts to the Institute of Museum and Library Services in Washington, D.C. could, quote, jeopardize literacy development and reading programs, reliable internet access for those without it at home, and homework help and other resources for students and educators, according to Education Week. Calls for book bans are increasing. Librarians are facing personal attacks around these issues. As a professor at CT State Norwalk, I already see gaps in education created by COVID-19, economic disparities in access to books and time, and access to technology. We do not want to disenfranchise our community by making the library a political space. While we are fortunate to have a strong supporter of the library's larger mission now, a sudden shift in administration could put that in jeopardy. I hope that you will take seriously these threats to our democracy and support our recommended change as a way to continue the cooperation and balance between the board and the mayor, which has existed in the past. Two additional changes include clarifying the reporting structure in section 87.1 to specify that the library director reports to the board on matters of library policy and to the city/mayor on administrative matters, which better reflects the hybrid nature of this position within Norwalk government. And second, updating the budget preparation procedure to formalize that the library board works with the director to prepare an advisory budget for submission to both the Board of Estimate and the Director of Community Services, aligning with the city's current management structure.
30 seconds remaining.
These modest but important changes will help ensure our library system maintains its excellence and independence for years to come. Thank you so much. Appreciate
Thank you
your
very
time.
much. We have two attendees online. If either of you would like to participate in public participation section, could you please raise your hand digitally? We'd be happy to have you up. No? Okay. So that brings us to new business. And the first item there was structure of the BET. This is something that we had tabled at the last meeting. I believe there was a suggestion to amend the structure of the BET so that 3 of the members would be appointed by the mayor, 3 would be appointed by the council. We voted to table that, but we have it back on the agenda this evening. This is something we need to resolve. We're at the point in the process where we need to get things off the table and sort it out one way or another. So I believe we need a motion to visit this item, remove it from the table.
Remove it from the table. Remove it.
Is there a motion to remove the structure of the BET discussion from the table?
I'll move that.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, so
We gotta vote.
we do have to vote. Okay.
Quick question. I know that there were 2 commissioners. It was tabled at our last meeting, and there were 2 commissioners that stated that they had specific requests about the appointment characteristics of the BET. Attorney Camacho said that he desired for there to be representation from each district, and I believe Commissioner Dickens stated also, if I'm getting this right, something about minority representation on the BET. I don't recall exactly. I'm sure it's in the minutes. Are those also going to be considered this evening? Has there been any language or proposals made, or is it just the one that was tabled?
Well, we need to decide on what we're gonna do with that, with the structure of BT. I mean, if it can be, I suppose we could revisit the old discussion, or we can look into into new proposals by, commissioners.
I would
Okay,
like to ask a question whether we know, because I've spoken to a few council people about this issue. And I would like to get a clear-cut picture of how the current council feels about BET members either being appointed or elected. There seems to be a bit of a mixed bag for those that I've spoken to. So I'd like to get some guidance from how they feel.
Well, I believe the members of the council gave a vote.
Discussion.
yeah,
Okay.
yes, okay.
Once you do that, it's open for everything.
Okay,
Can I ask, what is the item on the table, the proposal that Commissioner Levin had for the 3-3 appointments? That's what's on the table. That'll come up.
that'll
And
cover
all the things that you're gonna talk about will be.
Based
You
on
can
the-
amend that, modify that, you can accept it. Okay, just
Yeah.
want to make sure I
Yeah.
understood. Thanks.
So all in favor of removing the BET structure discussion from the table? Any opposed? Carl, were you opposed, or was that a late yes?
No, I'm in favor of
Okay.
moving
Any
it from
abstentions?
the discussion. With a caveat that before we have a complete discussion and vote on this, we get council input, individual members.
Okay, I mean, we can, figure out how best to do that. I mean, the council members that we heard from, I think at our last meeting were largely not in favor of having council appointments to the BET, if I remember correctly.
It was never discussed. It wasn't raised, but, you know,
Yeah, it's
it was never proposed. So, yeah, I mean, it
Well, not the 3 and 3, but I think the discussion with Greg and Josh, and perhaps I'm wrong, was that Greg Burnett and Josh Goldstein, was that they had reservations about that at best. But if we're considering the 3 and 3 again, I mean, we tabled it last time. If we need more information, we need to know exactly what we're asking of people, because we have to really figure this out soon. It's mid-April and we gotta wrap this up, and we need to have
so,
some.
Mr. Chair, can we not poll the individual members of council, whether it's a committee from this commission or you yourself, but make it official that we actually polled from the sitting members? And a roll call feeling of how they feel about it?
Yeah,
Because
I mean, Carl,
I know we had a couple of council people say exactly what you said,
yeah.
but I've since heard from other council people that don't feel that way.
That's fair. I mean, I suppose an alternative would be we come up with the solution we think is best. And what we're doing here is all advisory anyway, right? So it's gonna go to the council. If they
Mhm.
don't like it,
Yes.
They'll
you tell us.
take it
May I
out.
suggest, that, the following, that, as a practical matter, the way it works, at least in practice, is that if there's a vacancy on the Board of Estimate and Taxation, either there's a vacancy and we are seeking, or the mayor's needs a candidate that meets the diversity requirements at the time of the Board of Estimate, either party representation or a district representation, or some other sort of requirement having to do with composition and diversity on the Board of Estimate and Taxation. What typically happens is that members of the Common Council will propose names to the mayor, people who meet those qualifications. The mayor will select from that list and then propose to the Common Council the person that they are seeking to nominate or propose, or have us fill that vacancy. And then the Common Council votes on it. That is, as a practical matter, how it works. It's not like the mayor dictates this will be the person.
Correct.
The Common Council plays no role in that dialogue, because if that were the case, the Common Council would basically say, well, that's not going to happen because the Common Council does not like to be dictated to. So, so that's really what happens in the real world.
So,
I think this discussion
sounds like-
about three members being appointed by the Common Council and three members being appointed by the mayor is really sort of adding rigidity to a process that that would really complicate the process and make the board potentially dysfunctional potentially because you don't have a buy-in from all necessary parties in the process. So that's how it happens. And what this proposal does, I think, would add rigidity to a system that has been working pretty well.
So Ed, I think you're describing an informal process, right? There's no, what you've described, there is no language in the charter that is associated with that.
What I'm
Correct.
describing is the way politics works.
Okay, politics works in strange ways at various times.
Well, that's a pretty good way.
And
That's a
sometimes
pretty
can be
good
hard
way.
to predict.
What's that?
Sometimes it can be hard to predict.
Well, it certainly is now in DC, that's for sure.
Well,
Yes.
If I may, to Ed's point, I'm in favor of codifying language that reflects the way Ed just described that it really works. And that would work for me.
Doug?
Well, I'm gonna ask one question and follow up with what Jim just said. Has we received anything from any council members since this was first discussed? Because I'm recollecting the same way you did at our very first meeting. I basically said nobody wanted to really change anything with the ordinance.
Yeah.
I don't recall getting any other follow-up communication from anybody. From the council.
I don't recall either getting anything specific to changing the way the BET is structured.
No,
Specifically
no,
with respect to
because,
council.
you know,
No, I
plenty of
agree.
opportunities and, you know,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I didn't miss something.
Yeah.
And I agree with Ed about this, having in the council, not on the Board of Investment Taxation. This is typical of most governments, you know, mayor, the council anoints and the mayor appoints, and if the mayor is going to be held with the responsibilities of an operating budget, you certainly want to have the BET members that reflect that individual's thinking of how things should progress. But I like the idea, Ed, of that at least each district gets a representation the way zoning has to. I'm very much, I'm very much, that's a good change, I think, in my point. That makes it a lot
Absolutely.
fairer.
I agree.
Ed, did you have some specific, what would be the specific change?
Well, the specific change that I would propose, and this is to on page 30, on page 33 of the packet that we received, section, let's see, section 7 dash 2 A2A. So that would be the provision of the charter that is entitled Political and Geographical Balance. I would propose that in addition to the language, there shall be no more than 2 members from any one council district, and not more than 3 appointed members shall belong to the same political party. I would add, provided there shall be 1 member from each council district, or that there shall be at least 1 member from each council district. So at the end of that, or where it seems appropriate, I think Steve might be able to come up with the right wording, but it would be at the end of that, as I see it now, it would be comma, provided that there shall be at least 1 member from each council district, or some language of that sort.
So Stephen, I have a question for you.
Yes,
I have a question for you that could make all of this mute, that some of the council people that I spoke to brought up, that whether it's appointed or whether it is elected, the question becomes, that if somebody raises their hand and say they want to run for BET in whatever district, is there a way of putting any requirements on that position that they have to also meet before they could run for that job?
No,
It's not.
If it-
Position. It's not, you don't run.
Because we brought it up in this group, and I think Ed brought it up a couple of times, and I agree. It's not to, you know, whatever about certain people's backgrounds or career, but you're dealing with an area that if you're not somewhat familiar with dealing with, you might not understand all the nuances or be able to make an appropriate decision when asked to do so. So that's the question. If you can't do that, then I don't think the fact of holding them as an elected position would ever fly.
Yeah, I don't know that we were, there was any movement towards making it elected. Carl.
If I
but the
can
simple
comment-
answer is that if they are elected, you really can't hold them to qualifications and background. Other than the electoral requirements and.
You can't make that as part of the part that you'd have to do in order to qualify for the ballot?
No,
Okay, well then it's a moot point probably.
Jim?
I served on the BET for almost 12 years, and it was a very good experience. Ed knows we were there together for a while, and this now speaking personally, I would have never ever considered being on the Board of Estimate if it was an elected position. I would never do it. So I know that's my personal opinion. Because elected politics is, for me, is a whole different thing than me serving my community, and which I was more than happy to do, would be happy to do, but I do not like having everything that goes along with being, elected and a politician. So I'm definitely in the camp of keeping the BET structured the way it is. Also, from what I understand, Mr. Mendick was telling us when looking at the different finance boards throughout the state, that the ones that are appointed have a better track record in terms of keeping the finances in good order for their towns and cities. Am I misspeaking, Counselor?
for the record, I've never said that.
Okay, so
Others have said that, and I've generally
okay,
raised the question that geography may be more of a factor than
okay.
appointed membership, but I've
Thank you
never
for the-
said that.
Thank you for the
Yeah.
clarification. I appreciate it.
Although I think Stanford has a AA, small a rating, and there I think
Elected.
Yeah, and so as opposed to a AAA rating. So that is true as it regards Stanford. And Stanford is closer to the city than Norwalk is. But I think that when you get into the realm of electeds and you're talking about someone having to be from each council district, or at least each council district has to be represented, then the question becomes, does each council vote for its own member, or do you have an at-large election and then you pick the top vote getters from the district, so that if you have two top vote getters from A, then the first A is in and the second A is out, and then you go that way. So it becomes a little bit more complicated about how you do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to be clear, we're not
discussing.
The issue of elections is not on the table.
We're not, yeah, okay. So what we have then would, when we have,
We have an amendment on the floor.
we have Ed's amendment. Well, I mean, is Ed amending the three?
Well, yeah, you
Right,
really-
first we have to deal with the three.
Yeah, you have to deal with that.
2A, right? Isn't that he put in there?
Yeah, 2A, so at the end of which it would say, provided there shall be one member from each council district. That would
Which
be
is,
the amendment, basically.
right, because I mean, the way it's set up now, you could have,
Right.
you could have only 3 districts represented, right? If you had 2
Right.
from each.
Well, that's true.
Right, so you could freeze 2 out, so, but I mean, what we're working off of is the 3 mayor, 3 council. Is that something that we need to revisit? Because I think that was put
That's
aside.
the motion you're amending.
That is the motion we're amending. So if we're gonna, if we're, I mean, I completely agree with Ed on the one from each district. I think that is perfectly reasonable, but what we are working off of is the 3 council, 3 mayor, and it, I think at least preliminarily here, we had discussed that there doesn't really seem to be an appetite from the council to have 3 appointments.
Wait, you can't say that because there's actually been no inquiry to the council as to whether there is such an appetite or not. So we don't know.
Right.
We haven't heard from any council members who've wanted that. Right?
Now, so Mr. Chair, or in following the rules here, is it, could we make a motion to follow the language that Ed mentioned earlier to amend what we're talking about in order to put it out there where that would be, as everybody has said, we make recommendations, and this would be the language of the recommendation that we would make to council to consider, either to say yay or nay to.
I
Yeah,
think,
Sorry, Ed, go ahead.
I was gonna say, Carl, I think that John has a proposal or a motion on the table, whether or not for it to be a 3 and 3, and then if that should pass or fail, then my motion would be whatever's left, that we add the additional language that I
Okay,
said.
so can I make a motion that we vote on Commissioner Levin's proposal?
Yeah,
that's on the table?
I think that's what we should do. And then if, depending on what happens with that, Ed's proposal can be if we don't do the 3 and 3, Ed's would just be an amendment to the existing language.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. So
I would make that proposal.
a motion to vote on the
A motion to vote on Commissioner
on the
Levin.
3 and 3.
Yes.
Okay. Which we did. We do not need a second for that.
That's correct. Can I just remind people what we're actually voting on? So
Yep.
that there's no confusion. So at our previous meeting, I did propose several, I made several proposals. This was the second one. And I proposed this with the view that it would improve BET accountability, because I did speak to some current and former council members, and their concern, they expressed general broad concern that the BET doesn't answer to anyone and doesn't have accountability. We're not voting on electing them, but my proposal addresses really only one thing, and that is the appointment authority. The current language of the charter, 7-2A2, reads, "The members shall be appointed by the mayor for a term of 4 years, subject to approval by the council as set forth in 7-1C. The proposed change would be 3 members shall be appointed by the mayor for a term of 4 years, subject to approval by the common council as set forth, blah, blah, blah. And 3 members shall be appointed by the common council for a term of 4 years. So the proposal is merely to adjust the appointment authority from being all of the nominations coming from the mayor, all 6, to be half from the mayor and half from the council. Just as a reminder, the council does have appointment authority for some boards and commissions, notably this one. The Charter Revision Commission is appointed by the council. It is not done, I don't know how politics works. I'm sure it's done in consultation with the mayor. But the appointment authority for this commission is solely that of the council. Any questions?
Yeah.
And I have one quick question.
Mhm.
I might have, I don't know, heard this in a pipe dream somewhere. But is the commission supposed to be evenly balanced between Republicans and Democrats? And if you
It's supposed to be
independents and-
no more than 3 members from a single political party. So
Okay,
3 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and an independent, or some combination thereof, but no more than 3 from the same political party. I would note that if John Levin, if this becomes, if we vote that it be 3 and 3, the question becomes, if we then adopt the amendment that at least 1 member has to be from each council district, then that raises the question of, how do you, who gets A, B, and C, and who gets, so it becomes something of a of a chess game, because you would have to, fill, because you would have to represent every council district.
Doug, do you have a question?
No, let's finish with this, let's bring it up, we'll vote on that.
All right, so we'll now vote on John's proposed revision that has been taken off the table. To have 3 members of the BT appointed by the mayor, 3 members appointed by the common council. All in favor?
All right,
Make sure it gets done. In favor, John, Joe,
Yes.
who was the aye? Was it Carl?
that was me.
Carl? Okay, opposed? Anya, Jim, Ed, everybody else. Any abstentions? No, so it was the other 6. Okay. The motion does not pass. So now we will, we can vote on Ed's proposed language to 7 to A2A. Is that it?
Yes.
7?
Yes,
Yeah.
7 to A2A, the political and geographic balance. Ed's proposal was to add language that at least 1 member of the BET, you have at least 1 member of the BET, at least 1 member from each council district represented on the BET. That shouldn't change the other language. That should have no impact on the other language, that there should not be 2, any more than 2 members from 1 council district. I think what this does is it prevents the freeze out of up to 2 districts if you had 2 across 3 districts. All in favor of Ed's proposal? Any opposed? Any abstentions? 1 abstention. Okay, motion passes.
Can I say, as a matter of drafting, I do have a question. Are the appointments currently staggered?
They are staggered.
Does somebody have a record? I mean, it's not in the charter, so I think we should clarify that they should be staggered. And what we're gonna have to do with this new proposals, I'm gonna have to work on a transition provision to transition in to the council district. So what I would need to do is see who's on there currently and try to reverse engineer to find our way to a place where we ultimately will have each council district represented. But I'd be curious to see what
The city.
it would be helpful if it's staggered.
City clerk would have that in their appointment book.
Do we want to formally make it staggered and have it reference that the appointments are staggered?
Doug.
The terms of office are on the appointment, so if you go to the appointment on the, like Rick said, you go to the city website.
Yeah.
And you go on the Board of Investment Taxation, it lists.
No, I
No,
understand. but-
because I'm saying that's
Yeah.
gonna give you the idea of how they were staggered.
All right, but that was, everybody has said they're staggered, and I accept that they're staggered.
Right, no,
I'll
I
look
know.
at the website, I'm sure I'll find it. It doesn't say that, so do we want to just make it legal?
I think we should,
Yes.
because
That's all I'm saying.
I would
Okay.
make a recommendation that we do.
Let me push back a little bit on that. Just in light of the fact that we're talking about having a member appointed from each council district, does it really need to be staggered? Because from election to election, that might essentially exclude members from a given district that might have voted differently than the party of the existing member, for instance. And so does it really need to be staggered in light of the fact that there's that you still have the mayor appointed, the council approving it, and you still have a 4-year terms, and there's the added thing that each council district has to be represented. Should they not be represented? Should their representation not be tied to the election to some extent?
Right, so I'm confused. So if we don't want to mandate the staggered, but they've been appointed in a staggered fashion, how do I
Well,
will have to,
I don't
we'll
know
have
that
to
we have to-
reconstruct it so that when a mayor comes in, the mayor can appoint an entire board of
Yeah.
estimate.
I don't know that they've been appointed in a staggered fashion. They happen to be staggered at the moment. I think there are 3 members whose terms are up in this time around, so I don't know that it's staggered in a thoughtful way. They are staggered, and they are staggered, but I'm not sure that I'm not sure how it worked out that way, but I think that there are a number of members of the BET that are up for whose terms are about to expire in November, I believe. But I don't have that list in front of me.
Rick, did you have it?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you know, what Steve was saying, you could end up with a new administration with 5 members being reappointed, you know, new members saying no. I just would be a little concerned that we would lose all of our credibility of all 5 members being new at the same time. I think, Ed, the reason why it looks like it's staggered now and it wasn't really in writing to be staggered was because of the length of time to make appointments. And so it just falls that way that they're staggered out. But you could end up with like a new administration, and when terms are up, everybody be in the same year or the same cycle of the 5.
So before we act on that, why don't I go ahead and see what the appointments look like?
I would probably suggest that.
Let me just do that, and then we could talk intelligently about it, is what.
Yeah, makes sense.
Doug?
Just for background on this. 4 members, our appointments were up 11/30/2025, according to this, and the other 3 are up in 11/30/2027.
I don't know, that's staggered.
4 and 3, but 1 is the mayor.
Is it 4 and 3 or is it?
What should be?
The mayor's
first?
at 3, so
There's
it's-
also-
Looking at the mayor,
It's
I'm
3 and
looking at the
3.
mayor's term. I
Yeah,
apologize.
Yeah, the mayor's the 7th.
This is a great example of why the 4-year terms are a big old can of worms.
And I'm sorry, so one is at 21, 2,
3.
3 are 27, and 3 are at 25.
Okay,
And
so
that
they're all
was
staggered.
So the new mayor
That's
is
the
getting
mayor,
more members,
the
yeah.
past history to that was geared, so there was change.
So we have a stagger.
So when a mayor got elected, it had
They
the
get
ability to take
Yes, 3.
control of Board of Investment Taxation. In the old days, it would take 2 terms to get to that point.
Because you'd have the mayor
And
and
this
3.
was, I think.
Yeah.
You'd have mayor and 3.
Back,
Right.
quite a while back.
So we have a stagger.
I wanted to give you the history of it.
But if you go to district though, that may all change too.
What we will have to do is see where each of these, I've done this. We'll have to see where each of the current appointees live.
Yeah.
And we'll have to distribute to them. And right now, I mean, you know, who knows what the distribution is? And then we'll have to create a transition provision that well, we could,
You're pretty close.
it could take effect this one, that on December 1 of 2025.
I think he's got it pretty close, to be honest with you. It looks like he's got it that way.
Yeah,
I mean, it's that way now.
Pretty close to the districts.
There's E, right? It's E.
Well, we'll take a look.
Yeah, he does. He's got.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Well, and I mean, whatever the new mayor would have to account for in appointing would have to account for party anyway.
You gotta
right? So
account
now-
for party,
so now you
you
would just
have
have
to
to
account
account
for
for
districts.
Districts as well.
That's a challenge.
Can I, I'm sorry, Jim.
Jim and then Ed?
Thank you. Thanks, Ed. A question about BET terms. Now, there are 4-year terms, and the way we've done it is that you can serve a maximum of 3 4-year terms. And that's been my understanding. Is that in the charter in any place, and should it be?
It is in the charter, and if you seek to serve an additional term, you need 2/3 vote of the common council.
Thank you, Ed. Okay, cool.
I believe that's in the charter.
That answers my question. Thanks.
I do have a question about the start of the terms. I believe we've amended the charter so that the mayor's term no longer starts the day after the election. The mayor's term now starts, I think, in January.
January.
First business day of January.
So it seems to me that the terms of that tying the terms of the Board of Estimate to the old November November date, which was basically the election, the month of the election, it might make more sense to tie it to the mayors and the council's appointing authority, which probably begins in January, I would think.
Good point, Ed.
I would agree.
Makes
It'd
sense.
take that long anyway.
Looks like you've established there is a stagger, so do you want to make it officially in the charter is the question?
And effective January.
Yeah, I have that note.
Yeah, almost have to make it immediate.
It would,
Well, the charter will be effective upon adoption. The appointments will come after the adoption of the charter,
So I
so.
know some things you put a couple years out.
right, no, that one would have to be immediate.
I want to interject something for those who may have an opinion on the way. I obviously served, I know Mr. McQuaid has, I did 13 terms, I don't know, you did about 5 or 6, whatever. I don't remember a council ever voting down a Board of Investment and Taxation appointment, ever. Okay, now you may call it politics, but that's what's supposed to happen. That if there's a member, and Ed, you've been on both sides of this equation now. If you got a council that doesn't want somebody, the mayor's usually not gonna put them up. All right,
Doesn't even.
because they don't want it to go up and put somebody up to fail. Sometimes it's a negotiating tool, but I also believe sometimes we shouldn't get hung up sometimes about what their great financial skills are or background is, because there's a member here, I voted for you first go around, James. And I remember some of the comments, and if you're willing to serve the government, willing to serve the government. And you should be applauded for that, because you kind of learn as you go.
And Jim was elevated to chair.
Let me get that commentary for the
No,
record.
it's good to have background. He's been there, Doug, for sure. So did somebody else have a question or? No, okay, so then do we need to take a vote to add the staggered term language
And the January.
and the January first? I think we do. Okay, so we will, and Steve will, I guess, draft language for us to take a look at, but we will take a vote on whether to add language codifying the staggered terms, and we need to amend the start date to align with the new mayoral start date that was revised in the last charter.
Before we vote, I do wish to just simply ask, is it necessary to codify the staggered terms, given that's how it is now? And it stays that way indefinitely unless it's changed. We're codifying something that already exists. I'm wondering if, and I would defer to Attorney Mednick or anyone else who might have a better, more informed opinion, but I don't see the point of adding yet another item to recommend for charter revision that in fact isn't,
Well, I don't believe currently in
appears
the
not to be
current, needed.
needed.
I don't believe in the current charter, right, Stephen, that it actually says there's staggered terms. I mean, we just spent 3 or 4 minutes trying to figure that
That
out.
is correct.
So it needs to
right.
be put in there.
No, the chart, so I think the language, when it was originally established, set these terms or something like that. They're staggered terms already. They'll stay that way forever. Unless they're changed. I don't think it needs to be put in there. Attorney Mednick, if you disagree, then I would defer to your view and your judgment, but.
Well, it's not in the charter now. Shouldn't it be in the charter?
Well, the charter does have a requirement when you're creating a board or commission to make a decision whether a board or commission will be staggered or not. Since the Board of Estimate is a charter-based commission, the place to address whether it should be staggered is the charter. And so that's why I recommended it, because it is a practice, so that there's no question whatsoever if you get a mayor in office who all of a sudden decides that he or she wants to change it. I think you're better off establishing a constitutional standard.
If-
I agree.
I have one final point, and this is getting to, we're getting into the weeds of this thing, but because we're talking about term limits, there's no more than 3 terms. If you serve a 4th term, you have to get 2/3.
Where is that?
Where do you see that, Ed?
I don't know. I've always understood that there was a term, that there were
Yeah, I
term
don't
limits.
think there is.
I'm not aware of
No,
it.
there's not.
I have it in other charters, but I've never.
No.
It's not
Oh,
this
okay.
charter.
It's not in 7.2 if that's.
If you want to do it, it's a healthy thing to
It could
have.
be-
I don't think you have.
Yeah,
it.
it could be somewhere else, but I think there should be a term limit of some sort, and it should be by a 2/3 majority. I've understood that that was the case. In fact, I served an additional term by a 2/3 majority of the city council because I had already served the 3 terms, and so that brings me to my point that if I fill an unexpired term, and so my first term, so at the conclusion of that term, that constituted 1 term because it was an unexpired term, and I think there were more than 2 years left on the unexpired term. So is there anything? So if we're going to have term limits, and I thought we did, then what constitutes a term? If you fill an unexpired term, if you are filling a term that is more than 2 years remaining, is that a term such that then you would need that would fall into the term limit situation? But but I always understood that there were term limits and that you needed a 2/3 majority to go beyond that. But I guess that's not in there. I thought it was, and that's how the city council has operated, to my understanding.
So there's, yeah, I'd have to look, so there's,
No, there's no term limits.
so seven,
Zoning.
7.2. Boards and commissions established by the charter, and then A is the BET, and so we were just looking at 2A, which is the political balance. 2B says addresses vacancy balance of term.
Maybe
But I would
that's-
have
No, but
I'm sorry, as set forth in 7.1.
Yeah, in that section, it says if you're appointed to a vacancy, you serve as a ballot term.
That's
Ed's question is, how does that get applied if you have a term limit? Is that a term or is it a partial term?
Right.
It depends how you define it, is what it comes down to.
Well, right, I think it.
One of my
But
other
there are no
towns-
term limits. But if there are no term limits, then it doesn't matter, right? I guess.
There's no term limits in the
Doesn't
charter.
count as a
No, it's no
full term,
term,
because
no term.
I think if you say it doesn't count as a term, then there's a clock, new clock.
First,
starting at a-
first, we would have to decide if we want to add the term limits, because it's what we're saying right now is that it's not in there.
It's not in there,
So
so
it's a
it's new.
Having discussion.
If you're interested, I can give you a bunch of examples of term limits, but
Well,
Yeah, some other night, Steve.
it has been by convention, it seems we have been honoring this notion of 3-4 year terms, by convention, if nothing else.
there might be an ordinance that I'm not aware
And
of.
so it would be nice to codify that, in my opinion. And of course, getting into the weeds, as Ed said, it would also be good to define these partial terms and.
Well, should we revisit that part of the discussion after we can be certain that it's not in the charter already?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Of
that
course.
makes sense.
So then,
Or in the ordinance. I mean, there could be an ordinance.
or in an ordinance.
Ah,
Okay. Need to look at BET term limits. So then,
It wouldn't just be BET, it's all boards.
all boards and commissions. So then we need to, I'm sorry, we still need to vote then on
Stagger and start.
staggered and start date rather, moving to align with the mayor's start date. Is there a motion to approve those revisions?
I'll make a motion to approve those, that they're staggered and that they are coincidental with the start of the mayor's new term.
Can I just say one thing though about that? It just hit me. If
Uh-oh,
the mayor is not starting office until the first business day of January, how is he or she going to make the appointments for the first day of January? So I would say you want to do a February 1st start date. No, that's.
that's a good point. I thought about that, but I thought,
Squeezes it,
Yeah.
legislates.
You see my point? I mean,
yeah, yeah. Good.
I actually thought the start date for the mayor was later than the 1st of January, but I'm probably
It's
wrong.
February 1st.
I don't, I disagree with that.
well, how do you appoint
How do
somebody?
we appoint them?
You have the,
Yeah, we have to
you have
get
the
names.
lame duck mayor appointing people.
No, the mayor, why move it to February? It's January 1st, the new mayor takes place, right?
Right, but they have to.
They have to
appoint someone
appoint, has to
that
be
has
approved by the council.
It's usually one of the first appointments they do. Under normal circumstances.
You'd have to have the council approve it at that first.
Yeah, I think February 1st makes sense, because
January.
otherwise we
It's
would,
the first meeting, something, but it's pretty quick.
yeah.
Well, you can say no later than February
We're gonna be
1st.
in budget season by then.
Well, then
That's what I'm
we need to
thinking.
change the second part to say that
That's what I'm.
that the 3 those three people would need to be, their start date would be
February versus 28.
following approval of the council at its first meeting in January.
I think you should have a date, because I think you need to lock in what the 4
When the term starts.
when the term starts, like why you have a date certain.
Yeah.
Because if they're appointed, if February 1st is the beginning of the appointment and they don't get around to approving it to the 15th, they're still in a term that started on February 1st.
If you wait too long, that impacts budget season.
But you have to put the.
But the other members remain on the bottom. So you're not
Yeah,
dealing
but
with,
they end in November of their term.
but they continue until they're appointed.
Right, right.
They're
Serve at the
replaced.
pleasure of the mayor.
So
Yeah, but
The BE,
current term.
So Stephen, you're saying there wouldn't be a BET with no members who are
what
current?
I'm saying is that you stay on a board until the successors are appointed
Yeah.
and qualified.
Serve at the pleasure of the mayor.
So you have a full board unless somebody quits.
Right.
and
No,
leaves.
no,
Yeah.
But
There you go.
if I'm appointed, if I was appointed in 2000, whatever, it's 25, say I was appointed in 25, but before it was changed, all right, I'm trying to think, but they submitted, so yeah. we have
You're
to-
legally
So-
admitted holdover.
So in 2027, 3 of these members are no longer members of the Board of Investment and Taxation.
Their term has ended, but they are allowed by law.
they're allowed to stay on.
There's a holdover.
Okay.
So we never have.
There's Supreme Court law on it.
You're served at the pleasure of the
Okay,
mayor.
that's what my thought was, that
Yeah,
it
right.
was almost 2 months.
Yeah, go to Stanford. They have people who stay on 7 years. Sorry.
So would, so would
Wow.
February first be the right date?
There's a shot, right?
Yeah, you got, you
For
already.
the new term?
Yeah.
Right, but you'd have the 3 holdovers there until that date.
Or until they're.
But we-
approved, yeah.
Or whatever it is, yeah, right, 34, they come up November 25.
Well, right now it's 3 cycle out every 2 years.
There's gonna be 3 cycling out this November.
This November,
And then November
I got you
2027.
taken care of in my head there. Sorry, you're right.
yeah, right, so they will, their term will have ended, but they will
Hold on.
remain on the board until the mayor appoints 3 new ones I mean, it could be
Does
at
it
the
say
meeting in
that?
January. No, that's what we're discussing right now. So, I mean, and to Steve's point, we probably need to have a specific date, because if you just say the first council meeting, it's gonna be different every year. So they would be,
The new term should be February.
the new
1st.
term would start February first, you would have a full BET until that date, and then on February first, you have 3 new members start.
But if
This
I'm
doesn't
mayor-
impact the
If
partial.
I were mayor and I'm pointing and I'm right smack in the middle presenting to the council. Cards all flat.
To move the animals.
See the dilemma you're in? You're putting new members on a board of investment taxation right smack in the middle of.
Right, but I mean,
The budget season, yeah.
it is, yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, put them to effective January 1st. If they don't get appointed till the 15th or whatever, 17th, whatever it falls, that's the way it falls. But their term ends.
But the practical impact's the same. It doesn't make any difference when their term
Yeah.
starts if you don't get around to appointing them until sometime in the month. It's your call. But
Later,
I-
make the
I
worse it is.
I agree.
When does
I
the
just don't know how
finance
you can do it
department,
otherwise.
when does the
I-
finance department and the mayor have to present their budget to the city council? Their first budget, the budget,
4th Tuesday in February.
what's that?
It has to be presented to the councils and by the 4th Tuesday of the
So they would be,
February.
they'd be there for a couple weeks. I
Okay,
mean,
so,
I just don't know what the alternative is, because the mayor starts January, the first business day in January, right?
right,
So that you have a formal appointment, can't happen until then. You can't have somebody a mayor-elect making appointments, so they would have to, that could be their first.
The way it is now, though. If they go with the term of the mayor gets, at the end of this term, and Mayor Rilling's off, those board of investment taxation people are off. They're done.
Correct, but I think what we were saying is that they would be, the 3 that would be up when Mayor Rilling would be allowed to remain on the BET
Till,
until the new ones are in place on whatever day.
well, I'm saying it should run concurrent with whatever the term of the mayor is, as it is now.
Well. there's
wait,
another
wait, the
thing
mayor, the mayor's. I don't believe that, I mean, that's an interesting question, because if the mayor is no longer the mayor, he's only He's only on the Board of Estimate and Taxation because he is the mayor. I guess his term continues after the election until January 1st. If, in this case, Harry's no longer mayor.
The new mayor would be the new chair.
Well, the new mayor would
Would
take
take
that,
over.
would take the seventh
But here,
spot.
let me,
the
let
new-
me make,
but-
let me
but
make
the new
another
mayor
point.
Does
Let me
not
make
assume
another-
office until January 1st.
Exactly.
Let me make another point. If the mayor is doing their job, this may be moot. If the mayor is doing their job, they're gonna make appointments while they're mayor. There's nothing that restricts the mayor from making appointments. The mayor will still be mayor in September and October and can make appointments to fill the vacancies that are gonna be created at the end of November with somebody starting on December 1st. So you would have to, so if you leave it at that date, then you leave it to the current mayor to make the appointments. If the mayor doesn't make the appointments, the new mayor will make the appointment back to 11:30 or 12:01. I mean, as a practical matter, the mayor has that authority through the first, just midnight before the first.
I thought
business day
there's,
of January.
wasn't there, I know there used to be, when you changed the charter, isn't there a provision there that no appointments can be made by a
Yeah, we did have.
Yeah,
something.
no, that's in there. That's in the charter.
Oh, we did put that in? the
I think
charter?
we
Yeah,
did.
I
They
believe
they
protected
couldn't
it,
make-
Yeah, I think we left
so
it.
you couldn't get a lame duck
Right.
mayor appointing a whole bunch of people that may have lost the election.
And that did happen.
Which is why I think you need to, well, obviously we'd have the three appointees have to start after the mayor. So they would have to, I get your point for sure.
I think it should be concurrent with the mayor's term as it always. has.
But how would-
It's worked so far.
But you see what I'm saying, like if the new mayor doesn't have appointment authority until January first or second.
Well, they had no appointment authority until the term started. Board of Investment members ran out. It was the second, it was the.
But is that how it's being done now though? Aren't all of, when the new mayor comes in, they put three new people, don't they have to,
Correct.
don't be approved by the council before they can do anything?
Yes.
Before they can start attending, yeah, so it'd be the same thing, but we're just putting a fixed date on it that would have to be after January first, because you can't have the new mayor, presumably the new mayor can't be appointing people until they take office. Right, which is gonna be, say, January first or second or third or whatever that day is.
So the old mayor is basically lame duck.
But it's the same way now.
Yeah, he can't
I'm
make
just saying,
any,
the
they can't make
term
any
was for a
appointment.
BET member.
Yeah,
I don't know if you're up this year or whatever.
I think I may be up
With
this
the
year.
mayor.
Yeah, I think I may be up this
Mayor's
year.
is
So
not
he can't extend the term, it's,
but as it is right now, when a new mayor comes in and gets their three appointments,
three
do those three people start day one? Or is there some transition period? Because otherwise, how can you have three new people coming in who haven't been approved by the council?
they,
Yeah, we've never done it before. That's what it is.
we've never had a mayor appoint anyone, that, unless it was a vacancy, number one.
Yeah.
Right, because terms may or may not expire that election year. And so if there is a vacancy, that person,
I think just.
serves, beginning the first meeting after they're appointed. So typically, the Board of Estimate and Taxation meets, their regular meeting is the first Monday of every month. So they start the first meeting or the first Monday of whatever month that follows their appointment.
But there's council approval of their appointment, right?
Right.
Right, so that's what we have to squeeze in between January first and whenever they attend their first meeting.
Well, we're also looking at now too, that before it used to be a 2-week period. Now we're looking at almost a month and a half.
Right.
So that makes a big difference because,
Right.
you know, you could end up with basically lame duck Board of Estimate and mayor.
Right.
Yeah. for a month
But the
and a half.
mayor is still mayor until January 1st, right? Or until December
Yes.
31st. So
Yeah,
Yes.
Well, whatever the first business day is.
whatever the first bit.
first business day is, yeah.
Oh, of January?
And you
Well, the
bring up, Ed brings up a good point, though. I'm not sure. You're saying, no, the way it stands today, it really doesn't run with the term. They stay there until replaced.
Well, they can't be replaced. If their term
Oh, their term's
expires,
up. I'm saying
yeah, if their term expires, then they can be replaced, but they serve until they're replaced. if their term hasn't expired, they can't be replaced. They are there until the expiration of their term or until they step down.
And the mayor can't make an appointment during.
The
Yeah,
mayor
there
can't
is a
remove,
provision,
the mayor can't remove anyone.
I correct myself, there is a provision in three dash three, F, mayor not succeeding to a subsequent term is limited in the last 60 days of the term.
Okay, yeah, we did, that makes me change the number.
We did do that in the last charter revision. I'm sorry, I forgot that. So the mayor is restricted, can't do it.
Right.
Okay.
So it's really a question of what do you want to have as a term start date? It's,
Midterms of what? Matt said right now, the member shall be appointed by the mayor for a term of 4 years. So you can rule by the common council, so for.
That's,
one
well, that's,
last
and that's the part I'm trying to sort out, is if their appointment is subject to the approval of the council.
it is.
Right.
Yeah, it
So-
is.
So they cannot possibly start on the same day the mayor does.
It's not.
No, they can't. So we're talking February 1st or
So you're
February.
talking February first. I think that's the only option, because you have to allow time for the mayor to make the appointment and then to have that council meeting where you approve the 3
It's
people.
gonna be a
Right,
fast
but you
track.
can't do appointments at the first council meeting.
So it'd be the second meeting.
It has to be the
So then it would
second,
definitely have. to be-
second meeting, which would appoint them, right?
Okay. So what,
So
so,
February 1st.
so we're gonna say February first.
Right.
So now, okay, so the two, so now the two proposals are adding language regarding the staggered terms. And then we need to, the second part is tying the BET, start date. Well, not to the mayoral start, in a way, the mayoral start date, but it's February first is what we're talking, because that gives the council time to approve the mayor's 3 appointments.
Yeah, just one question on that, Steve. So that the existing terms will all default to the February date?
Well, the existing terms will end as they end, but you're allowed under law to hold over, under our charter and under case law in Connecticut, you can hold over.
Okay, so
You're still a full-fledged voting member of the body until your replacement is appointed and qualified.
okay,
So they'll all be February first eventually.
Yeah, eventually it'll all still all be staggered. with-
Eventually, it will work out.
They'll all catch up and they'll. all-
In these first 2 cycles, you're gonna have holdovers.
Right.
Okay.
Just for clarity, I stand correct on one item. The mayor's term ends 11/18. The rest of the terms end 11/30, 12 days.
So we're already kind of doing that.
So, yeah, but you're going a full month, and you really want to be able to appoint BET by since you start now, it used to be the new council started on the term.
Well, we
third
should,
week in November,
we,
And then have a meeting the following week on the 4th Tuesday.
but in the last charter revision, we extended the transition period. So that's why you have that
Yeah,
long,
60 days. It's in there.
which I get, I see what you're saying, Doug, but that's, I think just with,
Well, so then you're kind of telling a mayor that I can't appoint anybody at the second meeting in January. Which is the normal meeting of the council. The first one is always the organizational meeting and then the committees,
That's
why
what I
would they
say.
put him in the second?
Why wouldn't he appoint?
because you just said February
The
first.
term starts
The
February.
term starts then, because
He
you.
should
have-
have-
Yeah.
Okay.
He should
I'm
have.
sorry,
appointed.
the mayor, his or her first action day one could be here are my 3 BET.
Yeah,
appointments.
right.
And then
Right.
it goes
Yeah,
on to
on
council.
February 1st. If he waits till February 1st, they won't be filled on February 1st.
Yeah.
He should. appoint
That can be
them.
the
No, it
first
should be
thing the
done.
mayor does, their 3 BET appointments.
and there's a transition between the election and the end of the year, basically, where all this is going to be worked out.
The mayor should be
Yeah.
planning this. That
Yeah.
was the objective of the transition period.
Then why delay the term to start until February 1st? Why not?
Because
The council has to approve it.
Council
Right,
has to
so,
approve it.
and it's vacant until the
Make it
council
the
approves
fourth
it.
Tuesday of
No, you don't want it to be vacant, that was the point. You wanna be short 3 BET members every other year?
As you're
for a
going in
month
the
and a half?
budget.
In budget
For
season?
for 2 or 3 days, sure. I
It's
mean,
not 2
no,
days, it's a
no,
month and a
almost.
half.
Yeah.
if
we,
if the mayor takes office on the 2nd and the council meets the next day, they can,
They don't meet the next.
no,
day.
they don't meet the next day. They meet that same day.
okay, then
It's the
great.
first Tuesday.
Then they can,
They don't
then,
approve it at that meeting, they approve it at the second.
Because they haven't been a body yet
okay,
that they can discuss it.
great.
To do it.
They can still do it. They can fill the vacancies in January,
Correct.
which is what Doug was saying.
Yeah.
At the second meeting in January.
Or earlier if they want to have a special meeting.
No, they're not-
Of course, they're not gonna do it. I'm just saying.
No, I'm
there's
just
no
saying,
restriction.
I'm trying to make it the easiest way.
All right,
possible.
Okay.
I just want to pull figures out. So just say going to 2026.
Yep.
All right, if you allowed the mayor to appoint by the second meeting in January, which would be January 27th. If you wait to the next council meeting, it'll be February 10th.
No, the mayor appoints their people day one. The council acts on it at the January 27th meeting in this example.
To start.
To start
February
February 1st. So as of January
Oh,
27th,
okay.
we say, here's our 3 new
Yeah.
people. On
Right.
February 1st, they're sitting in the BET seats,
1st. Absolutely.
ready to go. And that can happen.
And if for some reason-
that'll happen
I'm
every time.
interpreting
Yeah.
this reverse. I was thinking that was the line and nobody could do anything.
No.
Okay.
So
never mind.
that's just the formal council action at that second January.
Sorry, I apologize. I interpreted it a little bit differently.
So we are voting on those two pieces, the language about the staggered terms and the February 1st start date.
I have a question. Just
Yeah,
wondering,
Jim.
this is directed to Ed. Are you comfortable with that time frame?
Me? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that works. I think
based
that's,
on your experience. Good.
yeah, I think that's like, you don't want to, rush it or take more time than you need. I think that month is a good time.
Good. Just wanted your opinion. Thank you.
Yeah, so and the mayor-elect can be lining up their 3 appointments in the period between, the election and January 1st anyway, so they'll be ready to go. All right, all in favor of those 2 items? Any opposed? Any abstentions? It's unanimous. Okay, so that, so we've decided not to do the 3 and 3, correct? Right, that was what came off the table. We've made those 2 plus Ed's suggestion about the
Council
balance
districts.
from each of the council districts.
That's good.
Not to raise a question, but do you want me to get some information on term limits or not?
Yes, yeah, that would be helpful because it must be an ordinance somewhere because I recall that was raised as an issue and I think there was some support for the notion that there are term limits and to exceed those limits, you needed some special action by the Common Council.
I will do that.
I agree with that.
Well, I know there are term limits on some other boards, and then if you term out, you gotta set out a year, and then you can come back and serve another term, but
I mean, if there aren't term limits, I think there should be because the Board of Estimate of all boards should.
oh, I agree. I'm just saying that on some other boards, there are term limits.
Yeah.
And if it's a 3-year term and you serve 3 years, then when your 3rd term ends, you have to set out a full year before you can be put back on a board.
Right.
But you can only do that twice.
Okay.
Okay. Any other, so I think, does that resolve structure of the BET? 'Cause I think that's what I think it covers everything we had on there, which then takes us to the next item we had up, which was Article 10.
Wow.
Steve, were you gonna
Yeah, I'll be happy, and Jared is here,
Jared
distinguished
Schmidt with us as well. Thank
Chief
you,
Financial
Jared.
Officer. So I presented you with a package of things that we changed at the last meeting. There was nothing earth shattering in that, and that's on page 17 of your document, and I made other edits and changes to that section. But in the interim, well, this most significant change in the document that was presented is it lays out kind of a broad public hearing requirement on page 25 of 35 in section 10-11 that just lays out the importance of public hearings in all the elements of the capital budget process. It's just kind of a catch-all provision that was actually at the end of the chapter. You'll see it's been deleted, and I moved it to the front of the chapter. And I also made sure that in every section where there is going to be approval of the capital budget, or you move the capital budget forward, that you have a public hearing requirement. The one substantive question that came up was, we had a, go to page or section 10-16, page 28 of 35. We had a discussion about the term reinstatement. Because you may recall that Jared and I had two different definitions of what we thought reinstatement was. I don't think our heart was in either of those definitions. We had two different approaches to it. And I think we kind of came to a conclusion that reinstatement, there was no need for reinstatement. And so in this draft, I recommend deleting reinstatement. But after I did that, Jared, I think we did have this conversation. Yeah. We had a conversation about section 10-15 D, which is on page 27 of 35. While the Board of Reps, the Board of Estimate doesn't have the ability to amend or reduce the mayor's proposed budget, they do have the ability to transfer from the mayor's proposed capital budget to the operating budget all or part of any capital items it believes may feasibly be included in the operating budget for the ensuing year.
Right.
That's in the charter. It's been in the charter. It's still in the charter. We're not addressing it. That is probably what the reinstatement was to address. And so I was going to recommend that we leave reinstatement in for the limited purpose of addressing the reinstatement of an item that they may have taken out, 10-15 D. So I would recommend that we leave the reinstatement language in, limited to that reinstatement. If they choose, if the mayor disagrees and the council disagrees, the council has the ability to reinstate that item to the capital budget as opposed to going to the operating budget. So that would be a substantive matter. So I don't know if I need a motion, but if you give me direction, I'll be happy to reinstate reinstatement. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Who's cackling? Who's cackling?
Yeah.
So you would add language to the existing 10-16. I guess it's now B. No, it's now sorry, A.
It's I would put back in there where I deleted reinstate.
Right.
I would put it back in, but limit it to section 10-15 D.
Yeah. Right, makes sense.
All right. So those are the only substantive changes. The other change is I made sure we were consistent in our definition of the capital expenditures plan. I'm not calling it, we're not going to call it the 10-year capital improvement plan. We're going to call it the capital improvement plan. In the definition, it's for a 10-year plan. So I thought it looked a little redundant to keep saying 10 years every time we mention it. It's in the defined term. And that is the other change that is there. Now, since that time, the CFO and I spoke today, and I only handed it out to you late in the afternoon because we had gotten it late today. And there's also some other minor nits that we're going to look at as well. The CFO and I spoke about some other changes, and I don't know, does anybody have the document that I sent out today called additional comments from CFO and CRC?
I do.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go through it quickly, and what I'll propose is if you're generally okay with this, I will try to come up with final language for our next meeting so we can see the final language. But the first thing is Jared had suggested some modification. So as you're reading through this, if you take notes, in 10-1 A2, we modified the narrative regarding the capital budget and capital improvement plan.
Right.
Nothing substantive. It was more, you could correct me if I'm wrong, Jared. I think it was more syntax and grammar.
That's right.
And approach than anything else. The next change, again, was I picked up a typo somewhere in here, but The next change was on, see if I can find it quickly. Oh, the next change was in 10-6. There was a redundancy in the last sentence. This is the section Board of Estimate and Taxation deliberations on the mayor's proposed operating budget. In the last sentence, it says thereafter, the board may make alterations, increases and decreases in the mayor's proposed operating agreement as it deems proper is the way it would read now. We delete and said may make appropriate additional appropriations. That's covered by alterations, increases and decreases. Is that fair? read?
Yeah, that was the purpose of it. Just, it was redundant to say,
Yeah.
and make the additional
It
appropriation.
was a belt and suspenders. I don't know
You're
if
gonna
it's in the
delete,
current.
you're gonna delete appropriations from that sentence as well?
We're gonna delete and make the additional. We're gonna leave
Right.
mayor's
Appropriate.
proposed budget, operating budget appropriations.
Oh, got it. Okay, thank you.
So the word appropriations remains there.
Okay, thank you.
You'll see that in the markup. The most substantive change is, and Jared brought this up earlier, and I apologize for not seeing it, and I'm glad he brought it up today. In 10-11, we have a submission of estimates language, but that submission of estimates goes back to the very beginning of the process. It's similar to what we have on the operating side. But what we did not have on the capital side is an actual definition of the mayor submitting the capital budget by February 15th. So in 10-11B, I basically come up with the language that is similar to the language in the operating side, but it deals only with capital. C is a notice of publication, and it should say capital budget. We'll fix that.
In 10-11C.
In 10-11C, I didn't make that change, yeah. And then the rest of it is, the public hearing requirement was there already, so that's not a change. So basically, we caught the fact that we did not have a commencement on this side. I think the commencement is stated up front, but I thought it was really important to create a parallel universe for the capital. And those are the changes there. So what I will do for next week is, if I may say, Mr. Chair, what I'm going to hope, or not next week, 2 weeks from now, is what I hope to do for the meeting 2 weeks from now is to give you the charter with the changes in it. It doesn't presume final conclusive support for the language, but all the language that I've talked about this evening, and then we'll talk about these other action items will be in that document. What we will do is go through the document from the beginning to the end and try to go through as much as we can to finalize. We'll start with ones that we've discussed, finalize them, look at that, and then we can then go back to the beginning of the document to discuss some of these, what I'm calling now action items, which I'll describe in a few moments. If that procedure is okay with you, I think it's time for you to see what the charter looks like.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. Jared, do you have anything to add?
No, that was it. It's just not a lot that happened, just those few changes between last time and now.
And you can tell you, Doug, please.
Is there, the way this has been changed, is there any way, I'm one of those worst case scenario. Is there any way the council at some point could say, we're gonna take $1 million out of a capital project for Parks and Recreation, and instead take that million and give it to Parks and Recreation to maintain fields? Further operate.
They can deduct. They can vote against something, they can vote for something, and they can reduce something. They can't add to it.
Yeah, but I'm trying to look.
Sorry, that's in the current language. And
Well, when you say add something. Okay.
what you said.
Like line item.
What you said.
I'm saying, you're gonna go through the operating budget, the council, I know, votes on a cap. But we're saying the council has ability.
They
then
keep the
to-
budget the same, but move the
To
money
take
around.
move the money around, is this protect? I'm just asking.
On the
I'm
capital
one
side,
of those that I went through everything to figure out a way around, I swear. So I'm asking this question because that would worry me a little if the council had the authority to take a something is appropriated for capital purposes, which is a 15 to 20-year lifetime,
Mhm.
and saying, okay, it's a park and rec item, I'm gonna take it and move it over to an operating site
They don't have that. They don't have that ability.
at all. There's no way.
Right now, it's
it's
approve, reject, or reduce any item or reinstate
That's
any
on the
proposed
calendar.
transfer under 10-15D. So they cannot do it now, they can't do it. We don't
Okay,
cancel it.
just double check.
Yeah, did anybody else have a question? Well, we still have, we've Jerry here with us. I mean, do we need a motion to approve these changes or are we waiting for the?
If you like, if everybody, if there's a consensus, I don't think we need a formal
No, I
motion.
would wait until.
We'll wait until we
Yeah,
see
I would
the-
wait till you see
We'll vote on
everything. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, the library director is next. So this was, yeah, Jared, we're.
I go fast here.
Thank you again.
Twice.
Thank you.
There I go.
No reason to stay.
You need help?
Oh,
Carry
you
stuff?
need it.
Thank you, guys.
So this was a request that we received. I think we had briefly discussed it before. And I need to, sorry, I apologize. I just want to pull up, what language is that? So there's, section 8.2A, it's A3, in the charter, lays out, what is the
M.
title of it? What is the
Well, the
title?
title is, those appointed by mayor and confirmation by the county
So
council.
this is division heads, department chiefs. The suggestion we received from the chair of the library board of directors was to change. So right now, it just leaves it at library director, correct? In 8.2A3M.
The mayor makes the appointment.
That the mayor makes the appointment and the council approves, tax assessor, health director, all those positions. Proposed revision that we received would change that. Just to read, the mayor shall, I mean, right now, there's nothing, it just says the title, but it would change it to add. The mayor shall appoint the library director in consultation with the library board of directors from a list of not less than 3 candidates nominated by the board. I believe, I forwarded that email to everybody. There were 2 other things proposed in our first only presenter referenced the 3 things this evening. 2 of them, section 87, that is an ordinance, or those are ordinances. So that's not something that we would need to take action on. But the question is there a desire among this commission to add that language specific to the library director appointment process?
Can I just state that there's one other category that's kind of unique? And it's not this, but there is a category for appointments by a board or commission for an indeterminate term, and that is the police chief by the police commission, the fire chief by the fire commission. So the mayor and the council don't appear to have any role in those 2 appointments. So there, I'm not saying that's a precedent, but that is a differential, and that's a long-term provision. I think that's been.
I think the mayor serves on both those commissions, right? As a ex officio member?
I believe he does, but he doesn't have appointment authority, but presumably he gets to vote.
Right.
So, and Steve, maybe I don't recall this, but the commentary that Moyna submitted along with this was this, the change adopts management recommendation from the Connecticut State Library Guidelines and follows the standard practice of public libraries. It says this process reflects the collaborative approach already successfully implemented by the last 2 mayors when hiring library directors. But then it says during the last charter revision, the library board was omitted from the process. I don't know what that means, that we didn't do this change last time?
They wanted a similar change last time and the commission didn't give it.
I suspect.
So that's why. They didn't, yeah,
I-
that's what it is.
I think I wasn't present for that iteration of the charter revision, but I think this seeks to change it back to what it was before the last charter revision.
We
Is that
didn't
right?
take that out of the charter.
No, but instead,
It's where you want it to go back to.
yeah, you know what? I don't know what was before or what the change was, but my understanding is that what the library board has asked for is to go back to the appointment process that was in place before the last charter. Is that
I
correct?
think, I don't think that, I think the appointment process has always been the mayor appoints department heads, with the exception of the police chief and I guess the fire chief. That was what was in before. I think that what is suggested was that maybe the understanding was otherwise, but it has always been that the mayor appoints these department heads, including the library director. I think that's the way it's always been.
So what the library board wants is they want to be included with police and fire and have.
It's just a level below that they get to make
They
the
would
appointments, they feed the
pick
appointments to the
three.
mayor. Yeah.
Okay, I mean,
But the language is advisory, correct? And the way, unless I heard you wrong.
they want to be able to pick the three. At least three candidates that the mayor has to choose from.
Okay.
So right now,
The way
like I
it
said,
was written, I thought it was a little bit more loose.
they want to be, I mean, the way it's written, the mayor would only be able to select somebody that the library board has put forward.
Right, that's what they're saying, right?
I don't remember taking that language out of the other charter. I mean, right, I mean, and if that's what's, I mean, the comment was that this process reflects the collaborative approach already successfully implemented. So I mean, I don't see any reason why that couldn't continue to be implemented. I mean, the only thing would be if an incoming mayor opted not to choose. Not to
Well, yeah,
collaborate.
Ed's comments, and the police commission and the fire commission are appointed by the mayor when they take office. So obviously,
They're appointed by the commission.
the fire commission and the police commission appointed by the
Fire
mayor,
chief.
permanent
Mhm.
board.
Commission.
So I'm
No,
not-
he's saying
the
the
commissions are appointed by the
mayor
mayor.
appoints
Yeah.
those commissions,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the term of office will run with the mayor, correct?
What can they determine the term?
They're not a 4-year term, they're a 2-year term, right?
Mhm.
So what I'm saying, I'm getting to the political point of all this, and I don't mean this negatively, the shoe fits both sides. That if you're appointing a police commission or fire commission, you're doing appointments, you're certainly gonna pick people in the majority that are probably gonna agree.
Supporting what you were.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and apparently this is the way it's been with the library board. All right,
Right.
otherwise you
Well,
could have the
Tyler,
library board totally out of tune with the mayor at any particular time, because they are staggered terms too. They don't run with a mayor election, they're staggered terms too. So I'm just like, why change what has worked?
Right. Tyler?
Problem with the library.
Yes, Carl,
if you'll recall who our chairman was in the last charter,
yes,
and they had a direct tie with the library board,
okay,
I don't think we made any changes whatsoever.
I don't think we did either.
I don't think we did either.
I don't.
Not with, no.
I mean, I don't know that we changed anything in that section. It was just that section.
They
says-
did want changes, but they weren't granted, as I recall.
Right, I think we just left it as the mayor appoints those department heads and.
Right, we didn't mess with that.
And for that exact reason, Carl,
For the reason I
right
mentioned,
up there with taxing districts.
correct. Very much, very similar
Hey, Steve,
there.
I can throw those rocks too, Steve.
Very, very astute of you to point that out.
May I ask this question? Who appoints the library commission? Or the library board, so I should say.
The mayor, so it's kind of, it's kind of a similar process to the police and fire then, right? The mayor's appointing those commissions. And then it consults with them for the director positions. So I mean, it.
Or doesn't.
The reason I asked that question is because I think it addresses the concern that a new mayor may be hostile to, books of
Correct.
certain types, which is certainly possible, could appoint a director that is also hostile to, that is also into book banning or something. But as a practical matter, mayors appoint the library boards, So they.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. If the mayor and, you know, God forbid, if you had a mayor who was set on radically altering the libraries or banning books or whatever, and wanted to hire a director who was gonna carry that out, they would just appoint a board that was gonna do that anyway. Wouldn't it? Wasn't that how that would work?
I think so.
If we're kind of trying to prepare for the worst. So I don't know that that solves the problem. Unless I'm not understanding how the library board is put together.
The language of Ms. Noor's letter made it seem, as our discussion, that they have something has been changed and they want it changed back.
But it would have to have been changed in the charter, and the charter hasn't been changed.
Yeah,
So
we
it
didn't
sounds like
change
that might
anything
not
in
be-
the chart.
Yeah,
I
so
do
that-
not recall changing that in the charter unless we, I mean,
So
unless,
then they are mistaken in the history of this, or?
Well, I think I think they're, once again, they're talking about, as we have in some other areas this evening, I think they're talking about the practice or what they perceive the practice to have been.
well, look, I mean, if that's the case, I think perhaps we table this until we can confirm what was in the last charter, because in fairness, if that was something that was in the charter and we changed it and took it out and they want to go back to it, I'd be open to that, but if it just reads how it did before, which is, you know, in section 8.2A3, they lay out all of the department head positions, and it just says that the mayor appoints those people. I don't know that there's any reason to change that one specifically, particularly when
Right.
I would like to confirm too, because if the mayor wants to do this and the mayor appoints the library board, the mayor would just clear out the library board and put in their own appointments so that they could have this
Right.
director that's gonna do their bidding.
Right.
So why don't, all right, I will make a motion.
I don't think we made any changes. To me, this sounds like blocking and tackling.
I don't think we do either, Carl. I just want to double check that though.
No, I think you should.
And I want to be certain I understand how the library board comes together.
Well, to your point though, it's by ordinance. So, correct? And how they're appointed, if I'm reading this section, it's very simple, right?
They wanted to change they wanted to
No, I know
clarify
what
the
they
reporting
wanted to change,
structure.
I'm
and
saying
the budget.
right now, they-
That's a word.
It wouldn't have to, it'd be by ordinance, they can still change the methodology, correct?
The charter sets the methodology. The,
Appointed boards and commissions established by ordinance or otherwise may be described in general statutes.
no, but they're established by ordinance mandated by the charter, and they have to comply with the terms of the charter. And so the terms of the charter, the mayor appoints, the council approves. What is missing though, in a couple of the provisions that are created by charter, and I'm just looking at this, is neither the police commission nor the fire commission has terms of office unless they're set by ordinance. We have a charter that does not have terms of office for the police.
I
and
think they
fire.
can serve at the pleasure of the mayor or something.
Do they?
I believe so.
That's, I think
they're
the
given
way
to
it's
They're not
been.
by charter, they don't.
The mayor's always had to reappoint them every 2 years.
Every 2 years, she's got to reappoint him.
Has,
But
I
so
know
I
one
won't
said
say the
vacant for
charter
a whole
says
year.
so.
They went
Yeah,
vacant
no,
for a
no,
whole year.
it's not in the same.
Yes.
Definitely believe it's not in the charter.
Should it state that they're appointed for a term of 2 years,
Runs concurrent with the.
I think they're appointed pursuant to a contract.
term that's concurrent with the mayor?
That's what it is.
Yeah, because the mayor has to swear him in every 2 years.
Yeah,
All right, so should we add that language that they're appointed for a term concurrent with the term of the mayor?
Yes.
I believe so, yes. For the police and the fire.
well, but that would seem to indicate that the mayor or the commission can't fire the police commissioner or the police chief.
That's not true.
And then the mayor and the commission can fire a police chief or fire chief. So the terms would be largely, the concept of a term would be largely academic.
Oh, interesting.
Why would that be?
If you could
I understand
fire, if you could fire them, then that means that you have to hire someone to fill an unexpired term of the police chief?
No, we're talking about the commission.
Oh, I see.
Oh, not the chief.
Yeah, that's.
The
Sorry,
chief is
yeah.
indeterminate, the
Okay.
chief's got an indeterminate term.
Right.
I was
Okay.
talking about there was no reference to the terms for the commission.
Commission, I got you.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
sorry about that.
All right, well, I'm gonna make a motion to table the library director discussion until I would like to clarify, and I'm happy to share.
Exactly what the discussion was on that.
If we change anything last time,
Yeah.
right, what did the 2019 charter say about that?
Absolutely.
And then how does the library board get appointed? Because
Yes.
if there's no stagger, if they're not inheriting anyone, and the mayor has the ability to just completely wipe out the board and install their own people, then it's irrelevant. But this,
I'll make the motion to table if you need it.
okay.
Okay.
All in favor of tabling that discussion?
Just one final point, just to put a pin in it. If the mayor can actually wipe out the board, the library board, and install and appoint a new board, maybe we should address that, because that could be problematic.
But that's not
the
in,
purpose of tabling that.
Oh, that's not in the
discussion.
charter?
that's not in the charter. That's created by ordinance. In the last charter revision, it was determined that you have to have a library board, but it should be governed by ordinance.
I got you.
If you think that it requires protection, it should be
I
in the
mean,
charter.
I think given today's current climate, it might require some more protection than just an ordinance.
And I believe that's why this has all come up. Because
Mr.
we didn't,
Chair?
we didn't change a thing the last time around.
So I think it's a board that merits protection.
Could make them elected positions.
If their term, Ed, if they are term positions, the mayor can't end their term unless it's cause to end their term.
But you can amend the
You can amend the ordinances to
ordinance and
eliminate the
wipe them
term.
out. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think the charter gives them more protection
But that wouldn't be the mayor's decision. The ordinance would be changed by the legislative body.
by the legislative body that could be governed by the same party as the mayor, who's hostile to,
Could
whatever.
be, or
But-
might not be.
But what we could do in the charter, Ed, is maybe mandate that all boards and commissions created by ordinance shall have a term of 2 years or 4 years. And so for at least 2 years, if it's a 2-year body, it's protected.
Yeah.
If it's a 4-year body, it's protected. So we might consider language that's not focused on the library board, but they get the protection of the change.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
All in favor of tabling that? I think I saw some hands starting to go up. Any opposed to tabling discussion? Any abstentions? So we will table that discussion. So I believe our last thing, so this is, these are inactive action items, is that what we were calling these?
We should have called them inaction items.
Inaction items. These are things that we are going to be acting on in the very near future. Steve is going to introduce them, and then we'll have 2 weeks to kind of look things over in preparation for our next meeting. These were cleanup items largely from the last effort, right?
If everybody has looked at them, let me just explain a few, because I know it's getting late. I will walk through it quickly. Item number 2 is the biggest section in that. These are mainly, as you'll see, cleanups. But the big change is item number 4, where we have in the current charter language that says when you create a board or commission by ordinance, you need to address the following issues. I'm embarrassed to say, and I'll say it publicly, I'll take the flogging, I'll self-flagellate in this case. When we created the reapportionment committee, we neglected to follow the provisions of the charter, and I wrote the reapportionment committee ordinance with another member of the court counsel's office. And what we decided that the better course of action is say these are required provisions applicable to all boards and commissions. And maybe this, Ed, is where we will put the mandatory 2 or 4 years terms. So you can have no less than 2 years, no more than 4-year terms for them. But instead of having it in that would be the one that they have to select. The other is they have to comply with the 2 or 4 years they get to choose, which will be in the ordinance. The rest of the changes in this document are relatively, I won't call them all Scrivener's, but they're Scrivener's edits, with exception to the item number 9. I know there was some testimony, and I'll put it here more as a proposal. You could discuss it. Right now, we have a 5-year requirement for review of charters. if I was a younger person, I would be fully in favor of that, because it'd be great to be back here every 5 years to revise the charter, if I was lucky enough to be picked. But the standard provision is 10 years, and I've recommended that you go to the 10 years as opposed to the 5-year cycle. Now, you can have a charter revision whenever you want. This simply
This is
mandates it
mandatory.
every 10 years, so I wanted to point that out. Action item 3, action item 4, action item 5 relate to items in chapters 13 and 14 that were old special act provisions. We wanted to either have them turned into ordinances. None of them were. Since none of them were, I went through one last time, and what you'll see here is, in some cases, we actually moved some of these special act provisions into the appropriate section of the body. For the tax collector, there are some special act provisions that are now in section 8-4E. You'll see in the document that we delete the entirety of chapter 14-5 or section 14-5. In action item 4, 8-4C, we add actually C2, we add a series of provisions that the controller wanted retained from the special act. And you'll see that 14-3, the section of the special act, will go away. The same is true in action item 5, Public Works. The Public Works Director wanted to retain a number of those acts, and so they've all moved in. Many of them have moved into section 8-7B2. No substantive changes. It's just a function of moving this provision of the special act into the body of the document. I was hoping more of it would go away, but they want to keep it. That's their privilege. Action item 6 is self-explanatory. We now have had reapportionment, and so the historic council districts in 14-1 will go away, as will the transition provision in 3-4A1. The assessment appeals provision is there's really no change there. I thought there was a little change in here, but we're getting rid of the 13-4 assessment appeal provision, I believe. I will double check that. I don't think there's any change in 4-4C3. I think we just got rid of the section because it doesn't exist any longer. And that's it. Those are the items.
So, did you question?
Yeah, on the 3-4-8, you have to reference another part of either the state statute or
Which section?
classified
Action
council
item
district. You
6.
just don't.
I think this.
City is divided into 5 council districts. 2 council will be elected from each council district at the regular municipal election. City of Norwalk.
What is the question on that second?
Should you reference the established council district somewhere?
No,
Or
they're in the ordinances.
Divided into 5 districts, it's just whatever the 5 current
Okay.
district.
You don't need to have them in the charter. Because they could.
No, but, okay, I'm looking for a cross reference. I'm looking this up, says, okay, I've got 5 districts. How do you do it? Could we reference any other act or anything? I just asked. So you know, sometimes the fancy language for reasons, sir. I don't know if it's required. It's like a dead end.
We can
Check
say-
your email.
That it's divided into 5 districts. The districts shall be established by ordinance, so that people know you have to
Yeah.
go to ordinances.
Section such and such. You know. That's what I'm looking for.
Well, yeah.
How do you do that? You know,
I'll just write a sentence, the districts shall be established by ordinance.
which is currently what?
I'll try to get this section and I will put it into the footnotes. At the time that the charter was adopted, it will be section such and such.
I have one question. I'm not sure if this is the right time to bring it up. Have we discussed or are we planning to discuss the necessity of having a sheriff and constables and a treasurer, all of, at least the treasurer position is, I think they make $1,000 a year, but they don't do anything, as far as I know. And sheriff and constables. The problem with those positions is that they really sort of don't do much. But they take up a lot of space on the ballots. And
So
so,
Yeah, we had discussed constables, Ed, I think earlier in this commission, I think,
Mhm.
and decided that, so last time we eliminated a few things.
right,
Sheriff and something else.
Sheriff and selectmen.
Sheriff and selectmen, and I think.
No, we kept the sheriff.
you kept the sheriff, yeah.
Oh,
We kept the sheriff
no,
and you know why?
selectmen,
Controller.
treasurer.
Treasurer.
Treasurer, we got
Rid of treasurer.
You did do sheriff, but it was out to like 2000.
It's 2029.
Yeah.
Right. There was a reason the sheriff
Constables,
was exempt.
Constables, I think the consensus was that they do something,
Okay,
whereas the others, no one, I mean, the people who were in those positions didn't know what they were, so I think that was where we landed with that.
yeah.
I think we discussed that constables also get paid by attorneys. So they're not.
Share
attorney on the
papers, they
city.
don't share papers locally, I guess that's right.
Somebody-
And the sheriff, what does the sheriff do?
Well, he can serve subpoenas and foreclosures and things also, and he can also assist in the constables or city police if he wants to call them in.
But do they carry weapons or anything?
No,
They could.
No.
no, they
They're
don't.
not
carry
peace
weapons.
If they have a
officers.
permit, they can, but
They carry weapons.
no,
Like a cop.
it's not, doesn't come with the job, no.
Doesn't come with the job, okay. No badge.
Yeah, just the badge.
So
Does it come with a horse?
Just,
It comes in a Cracker Jack box.
so thinking ahead to our next meeting, we'll have a couple things that Steve's gonna look into. We'll look at the library director piece, and then a couple other things. Steve, if you wouldn't mind reminding me, what are our remaining meeting dates?
Well, the remaining meeting dates are the 29th,
And then every week.
the 6th of May, 13th of May, 20th, and 27th, with the report due on the 30th. So some one of those meetings has to be a public hearing. I'm on trial, believe it or not.
Guilty,
I'm no Ed Camacho, but I actually have a trial coming up.
guilty.
I wish, on the
Must
13th,
be Metnick.
14th.
That's for sure.
So I may be a very exhausted person on the night of the 13th. That might not be a bad meeting for you to do a public hearing.
The 13th.
You don't technically need me there.
Yeah, I think that's got potential to be the public hearing. I think obviously we want to have as much done and presented to the public as possible, so they know what they're looking
Yeah.
at and commenting on.
Between the 29th and the 6th, we should be able to. I would also say that maybe you should think about a Saturday session if we really need it, you know, to roll up our sleeves. I think that when you see it next week, you'll be a little daunted. I'll try to get to you as early as I can. When you actually see the charter, you'll see all the changes. I'll have notes on the side that hopefully will be clarifying. Up until 2 weeks ago, we only had one item that was approved. We're now moving
Getting a little
along.
better.
Rolling.
And the
It's
budget
momentum
section,
now.
rolling, and the big section is the budget, which
Yep.
is pretty interesting and useful. And yeah, so those are the dates.
So we will, all right, I'll check in with you, before our next meeting and make sure we're on target for maybe the 13th is the public hearing. Just the last thing I would ask people to just think about before our next meeting. I was looking over my grid and things that have been suggested and presented to us, and I think we had tabled it many meetings ago, but I think we'll have to untable and formally decide on what we want to do with the 4-year term. I know it's something that Carl and Rick, we had, it had come up last time, and we said, we'll do it at the next charter revision. Here we are at the next charter revision. So we'll figure out how to deal with that one way or another. But just, something to keep in mind that as a potential agenda item for next time.
I mean, it really comes to question, If anybody's mind changed from the day they walked in the door
Well,
for the charter revision, which how they felt about it.
Well, and I think it's, you know, perhaps it's how it's presented, it's when it kicks in, it's what other things are with it. It's something to discuss next.
Yeah. no,
It's just, you know, it's come up, it came up at the last charter revision, so we'll, you know, it is something we'll have to deal with, so. That's it for now. Does any other questions or items before we move to adjourn?
I will not be able to sleep until our next meeting if I don't ask this question. It relates to action item number 4. I apologize, it's a really stupid question. Is there a difference between controller and comptroller? Are they different or they're the same?
Well, that actually.
I think it is the same position, right?
Do we use it two different ways here?
I don't know.
It's to use multiple ways in different governments, but I think we use it one way in this.
Action item 4 references both.
Oh, really? Well, let's see.
Okay, you know what?
I was under the understanding that it is the same
Okay.
way that call the same,
Same way.
two different ways that call the same job.
Thank you. I will be able
Oh,
to sleep.
in the heading, I have controller, it's comptroller throughout. That's my typo. That's,
But it's the same job.
yeah,
job, yeah, it's all
yeah,
one.
that's only in the header.
And she's very good.
So, thank you, though. Okay, thank you.
So with that, do we have more?
Adjourn.
Thank you. All in favor?
Night all.
Adjourn at 8:20.
And there are cookies right outside. In fact, everyone who is not present, there are cookies for charter commission member attendees.
Glad you're gonna sleep tonight, John.
And I take it back, there was a time where a member, I was not on the council, from the Board of Investment Taxation, rejected not once but 3 times and went to court. Under Bill Collins, it was Susan Wallerstein.
Oh, yes.
And they went to court over it.
Wow.
Did you win?
You went to court over what? Over,
She won.
she went to court over what? Not-
What did Billy do?
Well, I think the court kind of convinced her.
John,
Yeah,
basically controller is used in businesses.
Video games.
And comptroller is used in governmental things.
Those are controllers.
Good night, all.
All right, good night.
I thought controllers were those things they gave you to watch TV. They play video games.